Few queues resurface in Nigeria as residents engage in panic buying following President Tinubu's inaugural speech on fuel subsidy. The presidential election petition court admits United States judgment on President Tinubu's alleged $460,000 forfeiture for drug crime in obese petition. Court upholds federal government's no work, no pay policy in the suit filed against the Academic Staff Union of Universities. And also coming up on Politics HQ, Ghana to host the United Nations Peacekeeping Summit in December. South Africa's main opposition, Democratic Alliance, moves to prevent Russian President Vladimir Putin from visiting the country. In Politics HQ tonight, we will be discussing President Tinubu's fuel subsidy removal. And my guest, Seun Dania, energy expert and consultant, Reify Integrated Solutions. He joins us live from Birmingham in the United Kingdom. And I also have Peter Esele, former president of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, and also PENGASSAN, joins us from the nation's capital in Abuja. Stay with us, Politics HQ. We'll be right back. In his inaugural speech, Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu announced the end of the fuel subsidy, a topic that has often gotten Nigerians talking. Reactions have trailed the president's announcement as queues have resumed to filling stations while petroleum prices have gone up. Some Nigerians have said the decision was important, as the president said his government looks to invest the money meant for fuel subsidy in other areas of the Nigerian economy. Others have, however, blamed the timing of the decision and the handling of the process, with profiteers are to make the most of the situation. On Politics HQ today, I have with me Peter Esele, former PENGASSAN and TUC president, and I also have Seun Dania, an energy consultant. A warm welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us on the program.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I would like to start with you, Peter. As we witness President Bola Ahmed Tinubu sworn in as the new president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, what were your initial thoughts on this momentous occasion, and how do you believe it will shape the future of the country?
Yeah, I think first thing was we've had a peaceful transfer of power, and so I was elated with that. And then based on his inaugural address, where he made the policy statement that he was going to take away subsidy, the first thing in my head was he's prepared to do the heavy lifting. And so fuel subsidy removal is one of those heavy lifting that I think he has decided that he was going to do. But there are inherent challenges that he has to rise up to, which has to do with what are the implications, what are the economic challenges, and the social impact of taking away fuel subsidy. Whether when I was PENGASSAN president or TUC president, we always know that there are some scam around the subsidy, yes. But what I would like to know is if he had set a timeline, when I use the word timeline, because there's subsidy till the end of June. The budgetary appropriation was for June. What was done was for 6 months. So whatever petroleum product you have in country right now is subsidized. So no other person brings in petroleum product except the NNPC. So and normally NNPC always tell us they have a 90-day stock. So if you have a 90-day stock of petroleum product, that invariably means that you have petroleum product that have been subsidized for 90 days. So what I would have expected the president to say is, yes, subsidy goes after the appropriation has been exhausted. Whatever was appropriated for subsidy has been exhausted, so subsidy goes. But what you have now, queues are back. There are some parts of the country where it's as high as getting 600 naira. There are some other parts that is 400. There are some other parts that is 350, which is what this may lead to. But we must have, regulators must be there to make sure that the people are not shortchanged. Okay,
thank you, Peter. Now, Seun, what are your initial thoughts on President Tinubu's decision to remove fuel subsidy and unify the forex rate How do you anticipate these measures will impact the lives of ordinary Nigerians and the economy in the long run?
I still can't hear you very clearly, but if I understand the question, you mean how it's going to affect how the impacts on Nigerians generally. Is that correct? Yeah, so as I already mentioned, fuel subsidy is something that has been eating deep into the finances of our country and has been affecting development generally. However, I still think it's a good call, because if we all recollect, the subsidy had been taken out of the budget as from effectively, June this year. So there is no provision for fuel subsidy. That's why we know that the former president, Muhammad Buhari, was asking for the $800 million IMF loan to provide palliatives to citizens, in order to cushion the effect of that fuel subsidy. But I think it's still, it's a far cry, because Nigerians are going through a whole lot right now economically, and it's not the best call at the moment. So I would have, thought that we'll probably wait for the Dangote Refinery to have come on stream, or at least the current president would have waited a little bit to understand what is going on. We currently know that we'll be spending about over $7 billion a year. And if we, do the maths, that's about over $800 million a month. So it would have been good to actually, that IMF loan, or probably we look for some place where the government will find some money to put into, to cushion the effect in terms of still provide that subsidy, right? Until people are able to, stabilize, and we're able to work on the exchange rates and some of the other macroeconomics that needs to be put in place for Nigerians not to suffer as much as they will, because we all know that once the price of petroleum products go up, and once the price of transportation goes up, every other thing will go up. So we are going to be experiencing very, very huge inflation. And I do not know if the elasticity limit of the current economic climate can actually handle it.
Thank you, Seun. Now, Peter, I'm sure this is not the first time you've witnessed such a thing, and Nigerians know the behavior of marketers, and this, to some people, might have been predictable. Now, what can the government do to mitigate these measures, what the marketers are doing, and to alleviate the suffering of ordinary Nigerians? Because on my way to the studio, I noticed lots of fuel queues, and Nigerians were stranded at bus stops. Everyone is trying to make a quick buck and profit out of the situation. So from your experience in the labor and also as a former oil man yourself, how best can the government arrest this situation?
I think the first thing they would have done is just like what the governor in Osun State is doing right now, whereby he has set up a team to make sure that the gas stations in Osun State don't go above the pump price, and they are checking all the tanks to make sure that nobody is holding the product. I think that's the first step. And whoever is found wanting, he has also given an executive order to ensure that filling station is shut down. So that's one. Then the second aspect will be for the regulators to move ahead and look at those who are actually profiteering in all of this, and then withdraw their licenses and don't allow them to function. And the third aspect will also be you can go ahead and also prosecute the people, those who are behind all of this, because we still have subsidy for at least another 60 days.
Yeah, but Peter, sorry to interrupt you. They will tell you, the marketers will tell you, look, we operate in a free market economy. This is a capitalist economy. We're not in the business of charity, and we will have to, we need to recoup our investments back. How do you respond to that?
No, nobody says you are running your business for charity. What is there right now is none of the marketers, as at today, has brought in a liter of petrol into this economy. So where they get their product from is from NNPC. And NNPC is the sole importer of petroleum products right now in the country. So even if you are deregulating right now, for the next 30 to 60 days, we still have in-country products, so which is coming straight from NNPC. So we are not running, say you are running a market or a market-based economy, or you are deregulated. Because why I will not agree with you is that they have not brought in any product. If they have brought in a product, and then you first of all ask them, how did you source your FX? Because if you are sourcing your FX from CBN, then you can sell for about 300 and something. If you are sourcing your FX from the parallel market, you'll be looking at, because as of today, the parallel market is about 750 naira to the dollar. While the CBN rate is about 463 naira to the dollar. So if a marketer is bringing a product at 750 naira to the dollar, you can't even sell at 400 naira. So the price you are going to sell will be at sync with the current price of diesel. Diesel as of today goes for about 630 naira. So if you are getting your FX, you will not be able to sell for anything less than 600 naira for PMS if you are getting it from the parallel market. So what the marketers are saying right now, or what you have just told me, it's not tenable. They have no single product, no drop of petrol in this country at the moment. All the petrol that we are buying, irrespective of the location or distance, is provided by the NNPC. What the marketers simply are all what I would call retail outlets. So as a retail outlet, you are supposed to sell at the amount which is agreed by the government. So not until July. When I use the word not until July is when the appropriation for subsidy ends. So if you now say June by June 30th, so July is when you will now say, okay, subsidy is off completely. But we still have product in country that is still subsidized. So that also gives room for Dangote says his refinery is coming up on stream by July. So we are expecting his first product will be coming up by July. So my expectation will be we should have just waited a while and let Dangote come up, and then we'll see how we are able to use Dangote to cushion whatever importation effect that we may face.
Now, Peter, staying with you, Peter, before I move to Seun, given the luxury of hindsight, if the president did not say, subsidy is over, I mean, in his campaign, he did say that the subsidy was going to remove the subsidy anyway. Do you think we'll be in this situation we're in now? And I'm glad you mentioned the Dangote Refinery. How much of a difference, of a game changer would it be in terms of the economics and also availability of this product and pricing?
Yes, if the president didn't say that in his inaugural speech, I don't think we'll have these queues that we're having right now. I don't think you're having racketeering going on, or you're having people hoarding products. That won't happen right now. Now, that's one. So people want to make a kill immediately from this. And then you look at the Dangote Refinery that will be coming up. People, yes, maybe a game changer in the sense that it will reduce pressure on FX. Pressure on FX in the sense that we're no longer going to be importing. We'll be creating jobs in Europe while importing unemployment. Because for every time we import petrol, we're actually creating jobs for the refineries in Europe and also for citizens in Europe. Meanwhile, because we lack local domestic production, we are losing jobs. Dangote Refinery alone will create 135,000 minimum direct jobs and over 300,000 indirect jobs. So that is huge. That is first step for what Dangote Refinery is bringing to the economy. The second aspect is that it reduces pressure on forex. The third aspect is that if we think that Dangote, you just made mention of price, I think the minimum we can take out of the price, the pump price, will not be more than 7 naira. And that comes to how much is federal government willing to sell? Are they going to sell the crude to Dangote in naira or in dollars? For a country that seriously needs dollars, I think they will still go ahead and sell, because the price of crude is priced in dollars, it's not priced in naira.
Yeah, but looking at where the crude is coming from and the cost of transportation, it's within Nigerian territorial waters. Wouldn't that make a difference in the pricing, as opposed to yes?
That's why I talked about 7 naira. It's not going to be more than 10 naira difference. Yes, it's not going to be more than 10 naira difference, because what you have is that you are still going to, let's say, as at 2 days ago, it was about $74 to $74, the price for a barrel of crude. So convert that to naira. So if you do the conversion to naira, you find out that it's running into almost 40,000 naira to a barrel of crude. So once you buy in dollars and you say in naira, you are going to have that price fluctuation. And so why I'm telling you that you're not going to have, it's not going to exceed 10 naira, is that I'm looking at the cost of freight. Of course, cost of freight from Europe to Nigeria is different from cost of freight from Dangote Refinery to the various pump stations. We are going to look at the price for insurance, which will also not be as huge as getting. So those are all 1 naira here, 2 naira there, 3 naira there at the end of the day. So that's why I'm able to tell you that you're not going to exceed 10 naira difference. But if you think that as at today, if I'm to give you the rough estimate for a price for a PMS, you're not going to get any PMS anything less than 350 naira minimum, depending upon location. Because if you live in Lagos, you are expecting your PMS is supposed to be cheaper than somebody who live in Maduguri or Taraba.
So Nigerians should brace themselves and tighten their belts. It's inevitable. The subsidy regime is here to stay. But I mean, we've been kicking the can forward and postponing what others have called doomsday, but it's here. Now, Seun, Dania, considering the potential social and economic impacts of subsidy removal, how could this policy decision affect President Tinubu's popularity amongst Nigerians? How critical is it for him to effectively communicate the reasoning behind this move and address public concerns?
So, of course, communication is very important, and the government needs to be able to communicate with its people. Where there has been a gap from the previous government, there's a huge gap in communication. So, like I mentioned earlier on the subsidy, they're already taking a decision to take out the subsidy. It's just unfortunate that the burden was, given to the new administration to implement. And right now, people then need to understand that the average marketer is a businessman, and whatever it is that the price that they are getting, whenever, when new products come in, they would need to recapitalize. They need to get new capital, more capital to buying products. That's why we can see the current reaction of people hoarding and immediately, increasing their prices. Because if they were to restock what they have, they will need a whole lot of money. And at the end of the whole day, everything boils down to the consumer. But I believe, and there's always been my stance, that the government is for the people, and it should be able to focus a lot more on, other areas where they can manage, resources in order to, ease the burden on the citizens. We should find other ways we can cut costs. Cost of governance is very high. Everybody can know how that is, because it's difficult for the average citizen to understand how we are having elaborate inauguration ceremonies, whereas and then everybody else is expected to, by just by the next day, everybody else is expected to then, brace for this kind of things. And if we look at the minimum wage in Nigeria is very, very low. So it's difficult. I don't say it's not practical that anybody can understand why they need to go through this hardship, even though, yes, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but the average citizen might not be able to understand it. So, of course, it's the responsibility of the government to, of course, communicate and re-communicate. And aside communication, find ways to ensure that the government should be the one, bearing the bonds on this, cutting down the cost of running governance and not the average citizen. So for whatever it takes, as, little time as we need to cushion, or still subsidize petroleum products. So we're able to have excess supply in the market. And of course, one of the issues that we're having that's causing, this issue, one of the major issues is also, our border securities, because most of the imported petroleum products are finding their ways into other countries. So those are the fundamental things that I believe that the government should do first, then we can then now take our subsidy and expect that the average citizens would understand what is going on.
Thank you very much, Seun. Now, Peter, just to follow up on what Seun said, Nigerians, we live in a very low trust environment. There's a trust deficit between the people and the government. And you pointed to the fact that we had an elaborate inauguration ceremony yesterday. Millions of naira was spent. And just 24 hours later, ordinary Nigerians, are expected to buckle up. Some Nigerians argue that, this subsidy regime is the only thing we enjoy, so leave it. It's the only benefit we get as ordinary Nigerians, buying fuel at a subsidized rate. Now, the substantial expenditure on subsidies, I mean, Seun did mention almost $1 billion every month, has been highlighted. Now, could you elaborate on the economic effects of spending such an amount on and its impact on the overall state of the Nigerian economy, and what alternative sectors could benefit from this expenditure, this huge money we're putting into subsidies? How do you balance the argument?
It's the government's responsibility.
Sorry, Seun, that question is directed to Peter.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay. We are going to hear a lot of argument for and argument against. And my job here is to take the middle part and also let people see what are the pros and cons. One of the reasons why government says they want to take away this subsidy is that first they felt that they are spending so much to subsidize petroleum products. So they want to take away the subsidy and to now plow the money into infrastructure. Now, what is the infrastructure plan? Where would the money go to? And don't forget, you and I know that we've been talking about these subsidies for so many years. So every time you have price increase, not deregulation. So people should understand the difference between price increase and deregulation. So every time we've had this price increase, Nigerians really can't point to that aspect of their life that has been impacted by it. Therefore, you have trust deficit. Then the second aspect would be that how have you been able to communicate what you want to do? Now, if you say you are taking away the subsidy, and then how do you mitigate the impact? Now, Nigerians have started feeling the brunt of the removal, even when it has not been done. So we're already feeling the brunt. Now, who is standing for the ordinary Nigerians? So what you lack there is that you are talking. Communication is said to be effective when the other person also understands what you are talking about. So right now, the government is also not communicating effectively. Then you now look at the third aspect. What is your strategy? They had gone, or the past administration went to the World Bank for $800 million. Who is the $800 million in the kitty of President Tinubu, or was it in the kitty of the last administration? So what do you intend to do with the $800 million? The last policy decision of the last administration was that they were going to give 50 million Nigerians who they think that are poor, in quote, 5,000 naira. 5,000 naira.
Is it a one-time fee, and how sustainable is it?
Exactly. So you are doing a one-time payment of $800 million. You just said, well, how sustainable? So what is also there is they have to look at the strategy, and then you also need to be transparent. People need to know what Seun in Birmingham has said, that there will be light at the end of the tunnel. Now, people need to know how that light will emerge at the end of the tunnel. It's not just for you to say there will be light at the end of the tunnel. What
do we need to do, or what does the government need to do so that that light would emerge and people know that, look, it's a sacrifice, it's a worthy sacrifice we're making?
Now, one thing the government need to do is that the government don't need to tell us that we need to tighten our belt while they're losing theirs. That's the issue of transparency. That's the issue of fighting corruption. That is the issue of reduction in governance. There's no country in the world, there's no democracy in the world where you spend 70% of your earning on recurrent expenditure. Now, from the latest data that I'm opportune to see, we use 92% of our revenue to service debt. So where are you? To be very exact, about 92.4% to service debt. So how do you expect to grow? Where is the development going to come from? So if you are also now borrowing to pay salaries, if you are borrowing to fund the government, that itself is a wasteful venture. Nobody borrows for consumption. You borrow for infrastructure, you borrow for development, you borrow for something that will serve as a catalyst for business to thrive. So if you are borrowing to pay salaries, if you are borrowing to fund the lifestyle of the president, or borrowing to fund the lifestyle of those in National Assembly, or you are borrowing, you are just waiting for the doomsday. It doesn't matter. There will be no light at the end of the tunnel. The people are going to have so much social dislocation and upheaval. Because one of the things that leads to societal collapse is that people feel you are having it your way while we are having nothing.
Mm.
So if you talk about subsidy, the past administration one day addressed a press conference and said subsidy is gone, there's no more subsidy. And then 3 months later, they also came back and they're talking about this is how much they are spending. And then they changed the word. That's why I'm talking about trust. They no longer use the word subsidy, they call it under recovery or over recovery. So one thing you expect government to do is, please, government, be transparent. If you want to put in place life, purchasing power is going to be reduced. So you have to also put something in place to make the people have hope in themselves that they can survive this. I've said it in one of the programs previously. I negotiated the 18,000 naira minimum wage. As at that 18,000 naira minimum wage, it was $120. That was how we arrived at $18, which means each person $3 a day. Now, the minimum wage is 30,000 naira. And as at today, if you look at the figure, theoretically, 30,000 naira is higher than 18,000 naira. But in practice, 30,000 naira today is $66. So what you have is the purchasing power of the citizenry has been reduced over time by over 40%. And when you also take away this subsidy, it's also going to impact on the finances of the average Nigerian citizen. So what are you doing? Do you have a totality viewpoint? When I use that word is, are you looking at the transport system? That, okay, well, let's make transportation to and fro, because one of the biggest things that eat into the revenue of an average Nigerian worker is the transport system. The cost of transportation. Have you addressed that? Have you also looking at the cost of housing? There are two major things. Then you now look at food. Yes. If you look at other areas in Europe and America, let me use Netherlands, for example. Agriculture is heavily subsidized. The last thing you think about in Europe or America is not able to eat. That is taken for granted because it's heavily subsidized. So government must come out with a holistic plan and tell us where this money will be plowed to.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. I would like to bring in Seun back into this conversation. Now, Seun, is it realistically possible to eliminate subsidies on petroleum products without increasing pump prices? Could you explain how this could be achieved and its feasibility in the current Nigerian context? Are there any international examples or best practices that can be drawn upon? Because Nigeria is a blessed country, and you look at their contemporaries in Qatar, in Bahrain, and the Gulf petrol monarchies. They are also buying petrol at a very cheap rate. So is there any magic that the government can do without increasing this pump prices?
So, I mean, to understand that clearly, we just have to go back to the beginning. You know, why the subsidy come into place, right? And the reason was because of the inefficiencies of our local refining capacity. So subsidy was just, a way to, in these, literal meaning, subsidize, in the meantime, while, we get our refineries back up to, capacity. But then it became an issue whereby the refineries could no longer work or are no longer even producing next to nothing. And, the people have hijacked the subsidy and everybody was importing products and the government was paying even for products that were not coming to ground. So there's no magic. It has always been government taking responsibility and government taking responsibility, understanding the social contract that the elected officials and, federal government workers, basically all government workers have with the citizenry, which is to provide, good value to help all of us manage our resources. So the first way to go about it is be able to refine your own products locally. I do not subscribe to when people say the government does not have any business or, shouldn't be in business. The government should be in business. Like if you look at Saudi Arabia, Saudi Aramco is one of the biggest oil companies in the whole world. It is owned by the government. If you look at Petrobras, it's owned by the Brazilian government, and they are running these things effectively and they are making money and ensuring that their citizens are benefiting from the natural resources that are available to all of us. The people in power are there to manage those resources on behalf of us all. So, first things first is local production. We have seen that it is not rocket science. If Dangote Group was able to build that large refinery with government support in this short period, right? That means there's a possibility that the government can build same refineries, and be able to provide refining capacity. We have a lot of crude oil. We need to tackle insecurity. We need to tackle, our border security across our borders, because the complaint has always been we have people smuggling products out of the country. So now we say the consumption of what the Nigerians consume locally might not be the accurate figure.
So shouldn't the government, is the government not putting the cart before the, is the government not putting the cart before the horse? Shouldn't they take care of these variables before saying, okay, we will now start the subsidy regime? Because it seems, it's not a carefully thought out process.
Yes, so they started off as, it was supposed to be short term, and then it became something that has passed from government to government, and we ended up finding ourselves where we are. It's definitely, we can't sustain subsidy because it was never supposed to be something that was going to be in place for a long time, because it's part of what has brought us to where we are. But then the solution is not just removing subsidy and saying you want to put the money into infrastructure. Let's remember that we always keep saying that Nigeria is a single product country, and that is not the truth. Apart from petroleum products, we have agriculture, we have good farmland, we have several other resources, gemstones, gold, and several things all over that are not accounted for. Right? We should the government should be able to tighten its belts and ensure that all these things are properly accounted for. We get the revenue that is generated from all these different resources, and everything is getting into the government coffers. That way, we can cushion the effect for people. And then if we take out subsidy, people know that there's enough money to go around. Some of the pros of taking out subsidy are to, generate more revenue and allow market forces to determine, what the price will be. Yes. But we've seen that when diesel, AGO was deregulated, we have not seen any solution to it. It has kept going higher and higher and higher till AGO is pretty much like gold these days. So it is difficult for the people to even trust or for anybody to believe that. We now have a new government, right? So we believe that, the government knows what they are doing because it's different from the previous government. But then the truth is, we need to see solutions. Those things need to be properly communicated. Nigerians need to hear from their government how they intend to make things work. That way people will trust, and give them the benefit of the doubt that yes, something is going to happen. Because at the end of the whole day, it's all about how it impacts our lives. And
the people need action, and also
businesses still need to thrive.
Yes, businesses need to thrive, lives need to improve. The people need action and words, and not just words. A fine place to go on a break. When we return, we'll still quite a lot to still unpack, looking at the removal of the fuel subsidy by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We'll be right back after this quick break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Politics HQ, and I still have with me Seun, Dania, energy expert and consultant, Reify Integrated Solutions, joining live from Birmingham in the United Kingdom, and also Peter Esele, former president of PENGASSAN and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, joins us live from the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. We've been discussing the removal of the fuel subsidy by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, Peter, the Nigerian Labour Congress has expressed the need for engagement on the issue of subsidy removal. In your opinion, how crucial is it for the government to involve stakeholders, including Labour, in decision-making processes of this type of nature? And what specific steps can be taken to address the concerns of the Labour movement while pursuing economic reforms? How do you strike a balance?
The Labour movement is also engaged. And then there was a clarification that I tried to verify if that was the Twitter feed of the new administration. I read it before coming on where they had said that what the president said in his inaugural speech is that subsidy will go as soon as there are no more appropriation for it. So they tried to clarify so that to ease the tension already on the street of the queues, but I know that marketers won't listen to that. Then the other aspect is that why Labour itself is also a stakeholder. So it's very important for you to engage. Because once you engage, it makes it easier for you. That's why I talk about effective communication. So if you don't engage, I would tell you that in another week or two, Labour is going to have a National Executive Council meeting, and there's likely going to be a threat of strike, of protest, or what have you. But the government need to now engage. And let me also go back to how we got to this mess. Because if you are talking about comparing us to Qatar, Bahrain, I don't think we are on that same level. Because Qatar, how many millions of people? There are about 2 million people or less. You look at Bahrain, how many millions of people? Nigeria, are talking about 200 million people, 200 plus people. So if you look at, even if you look at our crude oil reserve and you divide it by 200 million, you find out that we are nowhere near Bahrain, Qatar, or Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia Aramco is doing very well. Now, the Dangote Refinery, the NNPC or the federal government owns 20% of that Dangote Refinery. So that in itself is also what I'll call support for the energy security.
So, sorry to interrupt you. So there's no basis for comparison us with this Gulf petro monarchies?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. We have no basis to compare.
Thank you for establishing that fact.
We have no basis to compare, because if we decide to divide what our reserve is all about and the number of people that lives in that country. But we need to now go back to the process and system. For a society to function is a process. It's not ad hoc. Just don't wake up and say, oh, this is what you want to do. No. You first of all have to design, what do you want to achieve? What is your goal? And what are the steps you need to take to achieve that goal? That is what I think is lacking here. So, and if you go back, it's short-sightedness that have brought us to where we are. The refineries in Nigeria were first of all privately owned. First Shell owned one of the refineries, the one in Port Harcourt, before the government went ahead to build that. And then they took it over from Shell. So taking it away from private businesses. And then it was in the military era. And then Nigeria was awash with money. So they could afford to go ahead and say, okay, let's subsidize this product. So that was how it all started. And then one government moved to another, and suddenly, gradually, in those days, it was 75 kobo to $1. Then later it became $1 to 1 naira. So when it was 75 kobo to $1, there was the regulation. You could go to a filling station, and you have to go back and read all of these records. You could go to a filling station, and there are 3 white products for you to buy. So you have to make a choice which one you want. It was when the military government came in, and then they decided that, oh, they have too much money, so they want to subsidize this product. So in subsidizing the product, they started taking over businesses that they have no business being in. I'm not saying government should not be part of business, but I prefer government should be a silent partner in business. Just like what is happening in Dangote Refinery. But if you don't tell somebody, now nobody will know that government owns 20% of Dangote Refinery. So they started this whole thing gradually. Then it moved to 5 naira to $1. Then gradually it moved to 10 naira to $1. And then when the devaluation of naira continued, then the government had decided, okay, we'll give refineries 400,000 barrels every day to refine. Then it was discovered that our refineries were no longer working. So they would take this 400,000, all this started from the military era. They would take this 400,000 barrels to Europe and refine and bring it back. And as a result of people making under the table profit, under the table deals, so refineries will never work. Just forget about it. So our refineries were not working. It was easier for them to just export the product and bring it back in. So when you take out this product, so government, then Obasanjo came on board in 1999. When the President Obasanjo came on board and he asked for the report, and he found out that there was round tripping around the crude oil. Formerly, the way it was done was that the 400,000 barrel for local consumption was given less than that of how much the international price for crude oil.
Yes.
So, yes, the 400,000 barrels was cheaper for NNPC.
Because it's for local consumption, yes.
Yes, for local consumption. So what was later discovered, when Obasanjo went through all the records, it was not discovered that there was also round tripping around the 400,000 barrels of crude. So Obasanjo now decided that henceforth, the 400,000 barrels for local consumption should also now be priced in international crude oil price. Then that was when the subsidy now gradually, continually increased while Naira was crumbling. So I needed to give the background of all of this. And Obasanjo himself couldn't now go ahead and also take away subsidy. The union signed for Obasanjo to partially privatize the refineries on 5149, which is what you have in LNG model. So Obasanjo didn't do it. On the eve of just like Buhari leaving yesterday, on the eve of the end of his administration, he went ahead and decided to privatize the refineries. And then you have the Nigeria has a north and south divide. That's why I talked about all of this. And people felt, oh, he's leaving. Why is he privatizing now? So the incoming administration had to reverse it. There was protest on the streets. So what you have now is that for the Tinubu administration to go ahead to do all of this, it must be able to strike two things. One, there's what I call the political economics of the economy. Two, he must find the balance between the political economics of the economy and the economics of the economy. You know, you have somebody an economist will be telling you how wonderful it is to take away subsidy. Oh, how it will stimulate the economy, deregulate, create more jobs. Fine. But it's not but the politician who also now have to find that balance there's a tendency that this policy can also cause upheaval, social dislocation. And when you have that social dislocation, which is political, and society there's an upheaval in the society. So how are you going to practice your economics?
You should be able to manage that too. Thank you, Peter. Yes. Now, Seun, we talked about, Peter just talked about the political economy and also the economics of it. So how do you manage this social disruptions? Now, Seun, in order to minimize disruption and negative impacts, what steps can the Tinubu administration and government take to ensure a smooth transition following subsidy removal? Are there any international case studies or examples that can serve as a guide for managing such transitions effectively?
What can be done? What can be done? I mean, it's already caused a little bit of chaos. But what can be done? Increase local refining capacity. There's been a lot of, I believe that the government is still spending so much money on our local refineries, carrying out turnaround maintenances and whatnot. If those can actually be made to work, because I know in 2015 when President Muhammadu Buhari came into office, we were still at over 70% capacity. I'm not very certain what the numbers are right now, but if we could actually even get our refineries working to even if it's 50% capacity, that would be able to still.
Yeah, but now, Seun, sorry to interrupt you, Seun. The Dangote Refinery is the largest single train refinery in the world. It can take care of all our domestic consumption needs. Does the onboarding of the Dangote Refinery will it not put the final nail in the coffin of our remaining refineries? Because you have this private refinery that will be working, that is brand new and can take care of our domestic consumption needs. So what's the incentive for still spending money on the other refineries? Wouldn't you have excess oil in the system?
Yeah, so it's one of the steps. It may not take care of all the local needs, but it will still provide something. Because we have maybe like NDPR has an AGO refinery. I'm sure they are taking care of the local community needs for AGO. I know Walter Smith also has another mini refinery, and the Dangote Refinery. If the government, of course, as a plan, just the way they fully supported the Dangote Refinery, support a lot of all the local producers, or make it some kind of law, or give incentives for them to make those capital investments, whereby the truth is, if you refine your products, you make more money, than just selling your crude oil, right? So we have a lot of indigenous companies who have crude, and everybody's exporting, and even right now, they are losing so much money because of, pipeline vandalization and, the militancy in the Niger Delta area. So if the government were to, provide incentives, increase security, tighten our borders, like I said earlier on, our local consumption needs are escaping, not as much as is currently being predicted, because a lot of it is going to, neighboring countries because it's selling at higher prices. So a lot of smuggling is beneficial for smugglers. They were able to tighten up all those loopholes, encourage also the importers by giving them incentives, being able to get FX at the CBN rate, so to say. That way, more people are able to import products. They will have surplus. And when people bring in products, of course, like I said, the security has to be in place to ensure that those products actually do not go to another country, do not just use Nigeria as a transit. And that way, we'll be able to cushion the effect on everyone. Because Nigeria is an oil-producing company, and we're a big country. Yes, we have a very huge population, but then the thing is, how much of that population should be suffering? And we have a lot of them suffering right now. If Nigeria were to also fix our power problems, there will be less reliance on, for these little businesses who have to buy, and everybody in their homes who have to buy PMS or AGO just to provide power for themselves at home and for their businesses. Those are the kind of things that government should put in place that will cushion the effect. And so when you take out subsidy, a lot of people would not really care about the petroleum products. If you look at some of the other countries, right, advanced countries, most people, the average citizen's only interaction with petroleum products is for their cars. If you use maybe the UK, for instance, the only reason why anyone is going to buy diesel or buy PMS is for their cars. And not everybody needs to have a car because the public transport system is working effectively. So these are a few things that the government should, put in place to cushion effect for, the average citizens. For the average citizen, all we need to do is enjoy the fact that their country is an oil-producing country. We as Africans should not suffer for the gifts that we have.
Exactly. It should be a blessing and not a curse. Thank you, Seun, Dania. Now, Peter, before we wrap up, I know this is a very difficult task, but if you can, in less than 60 seconds, because we'll fast run out of time. Now, apart from subsidy removal, what other reforms or incentives could accompany, or would you recommend to accompany this policy change and promote sustainable economic growth in Nigeria? How can the government encourage alternative investment in alternative energy sources or industries to mitigate potential negative effects of subsidy removal? In less than a minute, please.
I think the most important thing is for government to have a system around. We're actually not a crude oil country. Nigeria is a gas country. We have more gas than the crude oil we're talking about. So we take advantage of our gas, encourage people to move in that direction, set up more gas plants so that people take advantage of it, gas to power cars, gas to power house, and then make gas the driver of the economy. And you find out that we'll make more money and we'll have clean energy and it will be better for everyone.
Thank you very much, Peter and Seun Dania. You've been fantastic guest. Seun Dania, energy expert and consultant, Reify Integrated Solutions, joining live in Birmingham in the United Kingdom. And Peter Esele, former President PENGASSAN and Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, joining from Abuja, Nigeria. We do appreciate your insights and knowledge on this subject. Thanks for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for having
me. Thank you.